Good morning. This is Elise Buie with the Maximum Mom podcast, and I am here today with, she doesn't realize it, but she's probably kind of famous to all of us because we've heard so much about her. Some of us have been able to meet her, others have not, but I know we all have some burning gym questions. So I'm here today with Amany Hacking. Welcome, Amany.
Thank you so much.
And am I pronouncing your name properly? You and I both have a lot of vowels, so I know sometimes people mess it up.
Yep, Amany's perfect.
Okay, good. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional background? I mean, I know you've had an interesting career path.
Sure. Yeah. So Jim and I actually went to law school together, and we finished at St. Louis U Law School. We graduated in 1997. I also have my master's in public policy administration from St. Louis U. And then when I finished law school, I went straight to clerking at the Missouri Court of Appeals, which is the intermediate court in St. Louis area in the state of Missouri for the Eastern District. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was a great job. I got to learn all sorts of things about how judges think and what good lawyering looks like, what not good lawyering looks like, and just a lot of good research and analysis and writing, and really nice way to start your practice because it was very welcoming and I think almost academic and just sort of an extension of my law school experience. So I really enjoyed that. And then from there, I went on to private practice. I practiced at a couple law firms. I did general civil litigation, commercial litigation, much like Jim did. We both did similar kinds of work in different law firms. And then I was pregnant with my first child, and I was working long, hard hours, as you might imagine, as was Jim. And so we just really had to have a heart-to-heart about what's going to happen here, what are we going to do? And so we made the change. We made the change kind of together, where I decided to go back to the Court of Appeals, which was not, of course, as financially lucrative, but it was a lot more time.
Right.
It was more about time than it was about money. And so it gave me more time. I had a more set schedule, I had a more set life. And so I went back to the court for several years. And then, I missed stuff, I missed practice, I missed students, I missed being in school, I missed lots of things. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Then an opening came up at the St. Louis U, where we went to law school, at the law clinic. And it was my professor and that I really enjoyed. And I had a really good working relationship with two of them, actually. And it was an opening there. And I was like, what are the odds? Let me see. Right. So then in 2007, I went back to St. Louis U Law School as a assistant professor in the clinic. And I did that for several years. And of course, I loved that. And then, I had to also think about, I had several kids at that point. My kids were getting older. And then I was like, I like teaching, but do I want to do something else? And then there was an opportunity there that they were downsizing. There's an opportunity for me to leave and start something else. And then I joined Jim. And so I've been here ever since. Yeah. So it's not a straight line. And I teach a class at WashU. I'm wrapping that up actually this semester, hopefully. But it's not a straight line. And that's okay, even though I always thought it was a straight line. And it's hard for me not to think of it as a straight line. So
I did too. With you. I completely thought it was a straight line, but I think having children, at least for me, it sounds like similar to you, it became a real issue of time. I mean, that calculus of time versus money, and time definitely played into it a lot when they were young.
Yeah, there was a lot of responsibility, a lot of things that needed to be done. And, there's a lot on your plate. There's a lot on your plate.
There is.
And being a lawyer, it's a huge responsibility. It's an awesome responsibility. And I love it. And I love being a lawyer. But you got to be focused. You got to be trained. You have to know when you can do what and how much is too much and how much is not going to work. And, sometimes, my clients are often very similar to my students and very similar to my kids. And I'm like, these are the rules. This is how it works. So if you want to do it that way, okay, we can do it. And if you don't, you might have to find somebody else. It just might not work. You know, and my kids can't do that. But I have said to them, hey, you think somebody else can do a better job? You can go find somebody who wants to do a better job.
Go for
I'd
it.
like to meet them. Let me know.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about your kids. I know you and Jim have a really big, active family. Tell us about your family.
Oh yeah, my kids are great. I love my kids. I miss them. They're growing up, and it's just a different time. It's a different, like you're a different person. So my oldest is 19, and he is his second year at San Diego State. So he's really far away from me. You know, of course, we're in the middle of the country. He's growing up. I mean, you know, you think they're babies, and in some ways they are, and some ways they're not. And it's really scary to kind of know, like, well, is this the younger one, or is this the older one? Am I talking to the adult, or am I talking to the kid? So, you know, and they still need you in different ways though. And so it's you adjusting your role, you adjusting kind of your position. So it's been fun to watch him, and you know, you have a relationship with him that's a little bit different than it was, you know, but you have to recreate that, you know.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And then my second one, as you know, we just dropped off at college at UVA last week, and you know, he's 17, and I don't know, he's still my baby to me, you know, they're all still my babies. So that's, you know, I'm excited for them. It's exciting, it's new, and I think that you know, my mom said something really funny. I said, Mom, she said, oh, did you have a nice trip? How was your trip? And I said, did you have fun? I said, Mom, I was stressed out. Like I had to get him stuff from Target. I had to get the stuff from the Amazon. I had to, you know, put the sheets on. I had to do all this stuff. I said, Mom, it was really stressful. There was a lot going on. And she's like, oh, she just didn't see that. You know, she's like, well, I'm sure he's happy to be away from all of you. Like, that's not nice. She said, he has all this freedom now. He has to do what he wants. I said, okay, I guess that's one way to look at it. So I hadn't really thought of it that way. I think in some ways he is happy to have his freedom, but I do think he misses home a little bit. He's a little bit more of a home person, I think, than my older son. But I think they're all finding their own adventures, and you just, you know, hope and pray that everything works out, and you just hope that you did the best you could. That's all you can do. Kind of like when you send your case out into the world, you send your client out into the world, you send your baby out into the world, and you hope that they listen to you, right?
Yeah, it's all you can do.
I mean, how many times have we sat next to the client and said, is that what I told you to say? Is that what we talked about? How do we talk about this issue? Why did, because they get so nervous in there. So the only way you'll know is when you end up in that situation. So, you know, I think they're going to make some mistakes. I think they're going to have to learn along the way. Again, it might not be a straight line. We'll see. We'll see.
Right.
And then, of course, I have my two younger ones at home. So I have my 15-year-old son, who is a junior now, and he'll be gone in 2 years. And then I'll go to college, and hopefully we'll see. And then my baby is 12, my 12-year-old daughter. So she's in 7th grade. So we still, you know, it's different things, but they all grow up pretty fast.
It's amazing to me how fast they grow up. I mean, we dropped our youngest at college in July of 6, and he is very different though. He was so ready to go. He's like, I don't need any help. I don't need you to buy me anything. I don't need anything. I got it. I mean, literally, I could not do anything for him. I was just like, can I like go to Target? He's like, Mom, I've got a car. I'll go to Target. I don't need anything. Like,
how far away is he from you?
He's in Michigan and we're in Washington, so quite far.
So he drove himself there, or you drove him?
We both drove. We actually took 2 vehicles. We took our RV and he took his car. And so, because he wanted the car at school and they were allowing him to have it. And so, and he's a car junkie. That's a whole nother conversation we could have. But so we drove out together, and but he literally brought himself 1 suitcase. I mean, he is a minimalist. I mean, and he just did not want any help. Wow. So yeah, it was very interesting.
I mean, my second son was like that, but he wouldn't even commit to like a color for his sheets. Right. Or, you know, just like basic things like for his desk. It was like, totally. You know, I just ordered it. I'm still on number 2. Maybe by number 4, I probably won't do anything. I'm sure she just shoved me out the door. But I was like, order, because I had just done this last year. Like, I'm just getting the hang of this. So But I do think, and I read some articles about this, there is an adjustment period, I think, for us
Oh,
as parents. Like,
absolutely. Well,
yeah.
like you and I were talking about before we came on, people don't talk about, I don't think, or I don't hear it much about the differences in the family dynamic. When each child leaves, how the family dynamic is actually altered, and the
Yeah.
people who are still left at home have to adjust. And
Yes.
it is, I find it fascinating. And having watched so many kids leave the nest now and watching those dynamics change, and then they change again as the kids learn to communicate and have relationships with each other very separately from the family, where they're like, my kids will get on Zoom and have these like Zoom sibling meetings, and
What are
it's
they
kind
talking about? About what?
just whatever, just like that's how they stay connected. Or
Oh, wow.
they'll do like group texts, we have
Yeah.
different things.
Right.
And it's just fascinating. I find the changing dynamics to be one of the most interesting parts of parenting. And we, of course, now are empty nesters. I mean, unfortunately, we are failed empty nesters. I must just put it out there. My husband and I ended up getting 2 puppies
Oh,
since
no.
my son has left.
Nope. No, thank you. No, I say that now, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna stick by this. Nope. I've never been a dog person. I don't need any more responsibility. I have plenty of responsibility. I like to go whenever and wherever. Not want to be bound by this. Nope, I got enough to do. And
I
when my
love
kids were
that.
little,
I
that's what
wish
they
I
wanted.
had your resolve.
Well, I mean, my son would, my oldest son, he would torment me. He would go online and find these beautiful pictures of the most beautiful cat you could imagine.
Right.
Every day, and he would print it out in color and leave it on my bed and say, Mom, did you see that? And he would name them. This is Meow, or this is whatever. He would name them, and I was like, this is unacceptable. You must stop. This is harassment.
That is hilarious.
I said, when you get your own place, you can have you can have a dog, a cat, a ferret, whatever you like, but not here.
Oh my gosh, we have been a huge pet family. I mean, we've had as many as 7 pets at a time.
Oh, no. Well, then that's why you got those puppies at the end. I'm not interested in that.
Exactly. We couldn't resist.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's fun. I mean, I think there's definitely a plus side to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit, about your background, I would think plays into your interest currently in the firm you and Jim run with immigration. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So you've been coming to America?
Yeah.
Like growing up? Yeah. So, yeah, well, we had lots of stories.
I know.
Yes. So, so I came to America in 1979, and I talk a little bit about my story when I do naturalization interviews also when they ask us to speak. So I've done this a few times, but when we first came to America, I was almost 7 years old. I had 2 older brothers. My dad was already in America. He came first, so he was a doctor. May he rest in peace. He passed away many years ago. He was a doctor, and he was actually a surgeon in the United States. And so he came first and kind of needed to pass the boards and really start over. He basically started, he was, maybe 31, 30, he was early 30s, and already, been practicing as a doctor. He went to England for a while. But the goal, I think, all along was to come to America and start this life with our family. And the funny thing is, when he came first, it was, I think it was much harder than he thought. Thankfully, he was a smart man, and he, accomplished and all of that. But it was a struggle. I mean, he had a big accent. He stood out. His name was different. His religion was different. He was different in lots of ways. He's darker skinned. And so things were really a challenge when he came. And my mom was in Egypt, like waiting for the papers, like, okay, we're waiting for the papers. We're waiting for the papers. We're waiting. Well, my mom's like, I'm sick of waiting. We need to get this show on the road. And then finally, even once we got the papers, he finally got the papers ready for us to come. He didn't have money for the flights.
Oh,
there
wow.
were 4 of us. So it's like, how are you going to come? So my mom, and I don't know, I think partially he wasn't ready for us to come. Like he couldn't afford it. He couldn't basically support himself. He had a really small apartment. He had to do his residency over. I mean, I say he had to start over, but I mean, they're very well-educated physicists and PhDs and doctors driving cabs in New York and Chicago, right? So I mean, we're still fortunate in a lot of ways, but to him, it was like, oh my God, I have to start everything over and do everything
Right.
over. And I don't have any money. And now I have these 3 kids and my wife who's literally knocking at the door. And so, my mom had to sell her gold, and she's still very traumatized about this. She does not like to talk about it because it was such a personal
Mhm.
thing to her. And gold is such a
Yeah.
something that's passed down. It's something that it's
Right.
not, it wasn't never really intended to be money. It was intended to be part of our
Totally.
family. But anyway, that was a sacrifice she made. So she sold that, and we all had one little suitcase, and we got on this plane, and next thing I knew, I was in Chicago, 1979.
Hmm.
And what did they have in 1979? They had a blizzard in
Yeah.
1979.
Oh God.
And I come from a hot desert
Right.
climate known as Egypt, where 95% of the land is desert
Right.
and it's hot. And we get here, and I've never seen a snowflake. We've never seen snow. We didn't have a coat. We didn't even have a
No.
sweater.
No.
I didn't even know what they were talking about. And we were just like, what is this? And we were all confused. And my mom, for months, she was like,
Oh,
I don't know if we're going to stay here. Like, and I even, I do this visual when I talk to people, I say, imagine every day you come home, it's a tiny apartment, and the suitcases were large, overseas suitcases. They're sitting by the front door every day. Suitcases. I have to walk by them every day because
oh,
she wanted to leave, but there's nowhere to put them.
sure.
And 2, she wanted to go back. Like this is
Right.
not what we thought, right? So thankfully the snow melted, and
Right.
we got through it okay. We managed. That first year was tough. And my oldest brother started high school. My second brother started middle school, and I was, almost 7. I
Right.
started first grade. So we all got pulled back. Really, we were ahead in Egypt, but even regardless,
Right.
my mom insisted that we start back a little bit so we get the language and so that we're confident. And so
Sure.
she made some really, I think, good decisions early on that really built us and made us strong students. And so, yeah, I mean, those first few years, they were hard. They were hard. Even just growing up was hard. I think my brothers had a harder time adjusting than I did. I was younger.
Right.
And my parents really, all they wanted us to do was fit in, like just fit in, just don't talk
Right.
too much. Just, I said, have you seen me? Have you talked to your daughter? It's very hard to just sort of blend in. It's not like that. But lucky for us, we lived in an environment in Chicago that was very diverse. Most of
Oh,
my
yeah.
friends were from all over the world. So I have friends from all over the world to this day,
That's amazing.
which is wonderful for me. So yeah, so I have my
Yeah.
own immigrant story, but most of my friends had their immigrant stories. And even
Right.
if they were US citizens and born in the United States, their parents were not. Most of their parents had come
Right.
from another country, whether it's China or Palestine or Peru. I mean, wherever it was, they were from all over the place. And so it was amazing for me to see that. So to me, we were all kind of the same. Even though we were all totally different, we were all the
Yep.
same. We were immigrant kids or children of immigrants. And, we all wanted to do well. We had to do well because there was no going back.
Right.
Our parents had high expectations for us. We wanted to succeed. And so that was great to be around people like that and that's how I thought everybody was. Like
Right.
when you grow up in an environment like that, you just think the world is like that. Well, I came to learn later it wasn't exactly like that.
Not
But lucky,
exactly.
yeah, lucky for me though, that's how it started. Of course, and my parents, hardest working people I know, right? And
Absolutely.
so that for me is how it started. But funny, in a funny way, I didn't go to law school to be an immigration lawyer. That's not
Right.
what I thought of at all. There was a total disconnect until much later, and it actually fell in Jim's lap. He didn't go looking for it. It just became what people sought him out for, and the need was there. And so it came to Jim first, and then it came to me, which is so funny. So it didn't come, not a traditional way, but it totally
Interesting.
makes sense. Yeah, but it totally
Yeah.
makes sense now that you think about it. Because I was a kid, I don't really remember all of the process.
Right.
When my parents became U.S. citizens, we were under 18 and we became U.S. citizens. So that's wonderful, right? But I have kids now that I represent whose parents didn't fill out the paperwork,
Exactly.
and so your parents adopted you from Russia, then they came to America, and then they said good luck, and they took care of you, and then you're 18 and you don't have a driver's license, you can't apply for financial aid
Right.
because they didn't do the paperwork. And so every day I'm grateful my parents did the paperwork, but these kids get punished. They really
Absolutely.
get penalized.
Well,
right?
don't you think, I mean, and I don't do immigration law, but I would think that doing the paperwork is highly complex. I mean,
It
that,
is.
do
It's
you know?
and it's only
Yeah,
gotten more complex. It's only
right.
gotten more complex. But wait, adopting a kid from another country, that's also complex. You went that far.
Yeah,
So let's finish the deal. Like, but I think
yeah,
for some people it's so overwhelming to do all of that. And it's amazing what they did. The whole process of adopting and bringing someone here and giving them a whole
totally.
new life. Beautiful, amazing thing. But if you don't
Well,
do it right all the way, then you have problems.
I
That's
just
just one
worry
example.
so much of the time about immigrants who like your father, who's highly educated, capable, you know what I mean? He's got that just ability to be able to start over and know that, yes, he can do it. Yes, he'll be able to get through this, even though it might be really hard. But some
Mhm.
people who maybe don't have that under their belt, I could think that the immigration process could be just so overwhelming to
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. And that's what's happened. And because of its complexity, they need us even more, right? We need to be
Absolutely.
more available. We need to be more of educators about this is what needs to happen. I mean, and that's why we love what we do, because we can take people from point A to point B or C because we know what needs to happen next and we teach them
Right.
that. And so, and yeah, and I was lucky in a lot of ways and very fortunate. But I'm also fortunate to help people who don't know and didn't have that. As long as
Right.
can raise your hand and find a good lawyer who can help you, then and someone who kind of has that connection too, which I think makes a big difference.
I think it's
So,
huge. Well, how do you feel and what do you think about, I mean, what's going on now with all these people coming over from Afghanistan? I would think we're going to have a major influx of, immigration needs with regard to that.
well, I wish there were, and I wish there were greater numbers. I don't even think the numbers are going to be as high as they should be. I
Mhm.
think we've left so
Yeah,
many people behind, and they're very stressful cases, very stressful situation. I mean, again, so I didn't, thankfully for me, I didn't have to leave in the middle of a war or middle of the
right,
end of the war, or even the revolution. Egypt had a revolution many, many
right,
years after I left. So, those are very scary times. You create refugees and you create chaos.
right.
And it's a really complicated situation. I was at the bakery this weekend picking up some treats for some friends, and somebody heard me say something, and she asked me, "Oh, you said that differently. It's this Arabic word." And she asked me, "Oh, where are you from?" And so we had this little conversation, and then someone behind me said something about Afghanistan, and I said, "Yeah, it's really complicated." And he said, "Yeah, well, we shouldn't be there. We shouldn't have been there." I'm like, well, you really got to be careful about stuff like that,
Yeah,
because, you know, think about Nazis, we stepped in to resolve. So there are good reasons why we get in, there are good reasons why we get out, but maybe there aren't, and maybe people aren't communicating, people don't know the history, but it is
right.
complicated. And we need to know why we're doing what we're doing. And unfortunately, to be a superpower and watch wrongdoing and not do anything, I don't know that that's the intention. I see why people say that, but it's so much more complicated than that.
It's so much more
Yeah,
complicated.
it's so
And
much more complicated.
I think it was Martin Luther King. There was a quote about like, there's always a good time to do the right thing. Like, you always can do the right thing. And I think about that a lot in our work when we're working with clients. I mean, so many situations. I know in immigration, I know for me in family law, there's so many nuances and you can't, in my opinion, it's really hard to judge, like it's hard to put yourself in the circumstances of all the things people have gone through. And I find my role to really be not judging, but instead doing what I can to educate, help, let people know what the law is, what their rights are, what they can and can't do, but really from a place of curiosity rather than judgment.
Right. It's very easy to judge. And I don't even know enough about Afghanistan historically and
Right.
culturally and religiously. There's so many things.
So
Uh,
many. Yes.
but I mean, just the way that we left them can't be good. So I think there are going to be a lot of repercussions. And I'm thankful that some are making it out. I wish more could.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen. I think time will tell. I think we're going to pay a heavy price for this. And I read a famous quote years ago when I was in college, and I totally agree with it. It was a little postcard I saw. It was at Berkeley, and we were just visiting, and the postcard said, "We defend and destroy places we don't understand." And I think that's so true.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Yeah, it's a very powerful statement. And I think that's so
It is.
true. We go in, we do things, we hope it's right, or we weren't even sure, or we don't go in when we should have gone in. It's just such
Right.
a complicated thing. And I was always interested in international policy and international
Me
law.
too.
And that's part of the reason I think immigration is attractive to me as well, because it involves so many different layers and different things. And the world is not, our little, home,
No,
or our little office. The world is so much bigger than that. And
it is.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing more, I think, with the media, I think with, all the technology, there's a lot more that we're able to see than we were before. And so it's easier to judge because it looks like, oh,
Right.
I would never do that, or we should never have gone there in the first place, or why are we leaving? I mean, I think we need to have intelligent discourse is what we need, instead of just judgment,
Absolutely.
and then make up your mind, but I don't even feel like I have enough, other than to say it's not as simple as good we left or good we went. You don't
Right.
even know. You don't know, because they're real
I
people.
do.
Those are real people,
Oh,
lives
very
and
much so.
families, and they want the same thing you do, right?
Right, exactly. And just
So
the safety. And obviously I have a son actually in the Marines, and I have to say what happened last week, you watch all these Marines be killed, and it was pretty disturbing on a variety of levels for me. But the thought that children, literally, you talk about your 19-year-old son and you look at the ages of these men and women who were killed. And most of them were 20, 21. These are young people that are in there dealing with what's going on in the airport. And I can't imagine the horror of the decisions that are being made on both sides. Like, I was pretty just rocked by the whole thought of, seeing people trying to leave, protect their families, seeing these young people try to decide what's okay, what's not okay, and then to think about what happened. It was really, last week was kind of disturbing for me. It was just
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and you have to have that personal connection. Yeah, I think that's very scary. And you want to believe that people are doing the right thing with the
right,
information that they have, and everyone's
exactly.
just doing the next best right thing is what you hope. I do think there's a lack of good communication and maybe good planning, and it makes you
Oh,
wonder, like, as a mom, I probably would have planned that out a little better. I
yeah,
think I would have had some plans, just taking my kid to college. Look at all the things I have to do. Imagine bringing him home, right? Like, what do you have to do? There should be a checklist. There should be something, some communication. There
well,
should be
and
a surprise.
that brings me to my next question. Thinking of what you do now, don't you do a lot of work around like running the hacking law firm and the practice from a operational standpoint?
Yeah. So it's funny. I wear many hats. Jim does
Sure.
too. I think when you own your own firm, and as
Right.
you're growing, we're wearing many hats. I'm a lawyer by trade, and I always think of myself as the lawyer, and it's very hard for me, actually, that transition from lawyer, roll
Right.
up my sleeve, this guy has a problem, we need to fix this problem, to, um, you know, I am the manager, and I am the supervisor, and I am the head of operations. So I have to have this aerial view, but I also have to be on the ground. And so
Right.
I think I do struggle with that. I'm not, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at it. The more time I can spend training my lawyers and training my staff, and the paralegals, and everyone supporting them, the more time
Right.
I can plan and think about the law firm on a higher level. And so, but that's not where I go. I go to the case.
Right.
I go directly to the problem, and this
Right.
is the problem with parenting as well, because I go, like, my son calls me and says something, oh, okay, well, we got to call so-and-so, we got to do this. And I'm like, no, we do not have to do anything. And actually, I'm proud of myself, because my oldest son told me, it's not funny, but he had his very expensive prescription glasses on at the beach, and apparently the wave came and he forgot to take them off, and they were gone. And he's like texting me, what do I do? Well, you have to call the eye doctor. So
Right.
here's, you need to find an eye doctor nearby. Don't you have replacement glasses? Okay, well, good luck. Please keep me posted. I think he thought I was going to ship him $900 glasses or something. No,
Right.
no. So I have to learn that, though. I have to think about that, because I want to just solve the problem.
Totally.
And it's faster and easier, and I'm good at
Yeah.
it, and I want to just do that. But what am I teaching? What are they
Exactly.
learning? And so I'm sure with 6 kids, my God, and they're all different. They all
So different.
need something in
That
a
is
different place.
I think that is one of the things we did right as parents. Obviously, we did many things wrong, I'm sure. But one thing we did right, I think, was I let go of all of my children's medical, dental, and orthodontic stuff when they were juniors in high school and put it on them. And they
Wow.
had to make appointments, they had to get to and from appointments. And it was, I think, I mean, I thought it through, and in my mind, it was my way of making sure they could self-advocate medically when they got to college and beyond.
Mm.
Because, I looked at my life and I was like, I spent a lot of time dealing with their issues. My boys all played football and lacrosse, that my daughter swam competitively. So they all had like injuries and things, that they had to deal with.
Oh, yes.
So it was something that I thought was a good idea. And now that I've watched it play out in my children, it was a brilliant idea. These kids all got to college. Nobody ever called me about something medical. They all just figure it out. And
Wow.
and they do it and they're able to kind of go through the process. But by doing it when they're in high school, it allows you to, oversee it. And so it really helped, I think, because it just got them to practice that muscle of how do
Wow.
they do it? What's the cadence of making appointments, keeping their appointments? I mean, to the point where if they skipped an appointment and there was a fee, they were paying that fee,
Mm.
like I wasn't.
Interesting.
And
Well,
so,
I'm past that, but that would have been a good tip.
yeah,
I did
it
not do
was.
that. You know what I did? I did the opposite. I would schedule, and till last year, I would have 4 dentist appointments back to back. Now, the one
Oh,
thing is, yeah, so they were all the same day, 30
right,
minutes. Yeah. So I would go one place, one time, they would
right,
go in. And I actually got to the point where the oldest was driving them and I would just meet them there. I signed the papers. They got to talk to
right.
the doctor. Please tell them what issues you're having. And I would observe. But I did it on my schedule and I do it 6, 7 months in advance. And I just do it all at one time. So
Interesting.
your way gives them more autonomy. My way gives me more autonomy in that I didn't have them all over the world or all over the calendar.
Exactly.
But the key was to rein it in because it's too much.
Right.
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 But I
Well, and
like the fact that you
I didn't go to those appointments once they were juniors, and we had signed paperwork because
Yeah.
in Washington, kids, I can't have access to any of their medical records unless they agree after
Mhm.
they're 13 in Washington.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh,
I know it's kind of early, but
that's ridiculous.
yeah. So, but I mean, we signed all the paperwork and then the doctors would just call me. We'd actually set up a phone appointments. All their medical providers were super nice.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so they would just call me and let me know if there was anything. And sometimes they wouldn't. Like if there was
Yeah.
nothing, they might shoot me an after visit
Yeah.
note and just say everything's fine. These are the vaccinations we did or whatever. And yeah,
Oh my God, they authorized their own vaccinations.
they do in Washington. Absolutely.
Oh my God. No, I couldn't have done that. But you know what? Whatever works, everything's good.
Right.
And also, you know what? That's another thing that I kind of did. Yeah, so I did it differently than you, but whatever works. And for me, I knew like the pediatrician is my friend. And
Right.
so again, I would group the appointments. I made them
Right.
at a time that worked with my schedule and with the kids' schedule. And she was very accommodating. And sometimes I just text her, she can do the refill. So I have these kind of
Yeah.
relationships that again, and it was less about them. It was more about my work and my schedule. And I wanted to get that done, but it couldn't be overwhelming for me. And I knew that wasn't Jim's
Right.
thing. Jim just
Right.
doesn't, that's not Jim's thing. He's not going to do that. Right. I could barely get him to go to where he needs to
Right.
go. So
Exactly.
for me, I did it where I had the schedule and I had sort of the control over it.
Right.
And then, yeah, my son had to sort of figure that out. It was a little bit of a surprise by freshman year. He was like, oh, I need to do this. Okay, well, you need to call. Well, who do I call? Well, I shared the information with you. This is the doctor. You can let them know you've been there before. So
Right.
it's starting, but it was new as opposed to having done it before. I don't think I could have done it sooner. I think they might have been
Interesting.
able to, but I don't think I could have.
Well, and I think one thing for me is different. I have that flip where you have the 3 boys and the youngest daughter, whereas our oldest is a girl.
Yeah.
And she was so independent. I mean, fiercely independent.
Wow.
And so she really set the stage for a level of
Yes.
independence and autonomy. And the boys almost followed suit because it was kind of expected, but it was more of a, okay, we can't be these, typical, like,
Don't know things. Yeah.
I mean, so they really had to get on board with the independence train. And the baby, who is a boy, was wildly independent, which is
Wow.
strange for the youngest.
Yeah.
But I think because of my work schedule, he just became so independent. He was able to do things, and he would just be like, Mom, why are we having this conversation? Like, obviously I know how to do this. I got it. I'd be like,
That's
oh,
cool.
okay.
That's nice. And I think it's great that they got to observe that. I think mine were so close together. I don't know
Right.
about the age gap, but it was that I think that made it different. And they have very different personalities.
Right.
And so I set the tone more than them, I think, in a number of ways. So,
Right.
when I knew something was coming up, and I think partly it's because of my childhood. I think my parents,
Sure.
love them, and they did an amazing job, but they were not as organized when it came to like picture day or the dentist or the eye doctor. Like there was no coordination. It was
Right.
just miscellaneous, random, chaotic. And I couldn't have that. That's not my
Right.
personality. That's not my style. That's not how I run my work or my home. And so for me, it was all like, okay, we have dentist appointments. This is, and I even texted them the schedule. Oh, we're busy that day. No, this is the schedule. If you would like to change it, you may call the doctor, but this is the schedule.
Right.
So I reined it in because I felt like if I didn't do that, it would be chaotic and they wouldn't do
Right.
it. I wouldn't do it. And we were just too busy. And I didn't like that in my child. I didn't like that part. I liked
Right.
the order, and I would have preferred that. And so I did what I thought I would have wanted, and I think they benefited greatly from it.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Absolutely.
that made this part easier, but I do think maybe it made the train to adulthood maybe not as fast, but it is coming. The train was coming anyway.
Absolutely.
And
And
they
they'll
saw
get
me
on
do
board.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They saw me do it, so they knew someone did it. You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yep.
I remember one of my boys said something like, well, how am I going to do this when I get to college? I said, well, that's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point of college. That's you.
Exactly.
And then I just walked away because I'm like, see, like that's all I can offer you.
Right. Peace out.
It's not like, things, it's like when we first had the babies, Jim would say, he said something really funny to me about, Amany, this is really cool. Like I open the door and there are always diapers and like this diaper thing that stores all the diapers. It's like, that's so great that it's always in there. I said, well, how do you think the diapers got in there? You think like a diaper genie comes in every week? That's me. Before I go to bed, I stock the diapers, so it's not chaotic the next day. Isn't that funny?
It's so typical that,
Yes. And it's so
I mean,
true.
it's so part of that whole emotional labor and work that goes in the background of many homes, I think.
Yes.
Where many times, and obviously not always, I don't mean to be so stereotypical to say that men don't ever do it, but I definitely think women carry the brunt of that in many, many homes. And there's an
Especially the working
interesting,
women.
and there's such an interesting book by, she's an attorney as well. She's a Harvard grad named Eve Rodsky, who wrote a book named Fair Play, which is so amazing about the dynamics at home. And she actually has a book and a card game. And it is so interesting because her whole model is, instead of women either doing it all, or like many women, they delegate it to their husbands. They're still thinking about it all.
Yes.
And they're just delegating or parsing out certain tasks.
Mm.
Her whole thing about fair play is literally dividing the work, but fully, so that each party has certain things that they own from beginning to end. And she talks about the example being like, maybe your husband, picks up a child from baseball practice or softball practice or whatever. And many women are like, oh, look at this, so-and-so is picking up the kids from practice. But we fail to really help the other party in our relationship understand there's signing the kid up for practice. There's finding the team in the first place. There's buying the uniform. There's fitting the uniforms. There's buying coach's gift. There's getting on the email list. There's setting up the carpool. There's getting the physicals, that the documents you need signed. I mean, there's so much work that goes into like joining a softball team that picking them up from practice is such a tiny part of it. But actually getting other partners to do the whole task. And I just thought it was game changing. I wish I could have had that mentality when my children were little.
Yeah, I've not read that book. It probably make me angry now, so maybe I won't. Maybe I'll pass on that right now. And I have a pretty good partner. But you know what? It's I don't know how to explain it. It's I just think about those things differently. I think he had a childhood where his mom took care of those things,
Right.
and his dad went to work.
Yep.
And even when his mom went to work, she had she was a teacher. She had a different schedule. So she was available in a different way.
Teacher hours, right? Different.
Just a different kind of like structure. And so
Yeah.
for us, and I'm so particular, I think that there are times when, and I know that about myself. And I think that it can make it hard for someone to just sort of enter that world and be like, well, I was trying to be helpful. Well, that was all wrong. I wish you hadn't done that. That was not what I
Not
asked.
helpful.
I didn't want that. Now I have to undo that, but I appreciate you trying to help, but don't do it like that. And that's very time consuming for me.
It is.
And
Well,
so
and I think, you do have to know yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because I
totally.
think some women are, in women, again, it's stereotypical. We do tend to be kind of controlling about a lot of these things,
Yeah, and I don't know if that's true across the board. I just know about me. I know that I was, and it helped me because, again, I didn't have that. I didn't have that structure, and I wanted it, and I thought the only way I would have it is if I created it. And so I did, and I did that for myself, and that helped me, right?
Right.
And I think when your partner sees that, then your partner's like, oh, she's good at it. She's doing it. That's
I
fine.
can
As
focus
opposed to
on something else. Yeah.
how can it, right? I just won't do that. Well, I mean, even last night, someone had to, I could have waited, but I didn't. I wanted it done. Like the insurance on the kids' Chromebook for school.
Mhm.
Okay. It was one of the zillion email. Oh my God, before school starts, there are zillions of things that have to happen.
It's like a part-time job, keeping up.
It really is. And I get these emails from the teachers, and they're lovely emails, but none of them say what school, what grade, even a child's name. It's just, they send a generic email. So, I have 4 kids in different places. I gotta spend 5 minutes to figure out who you are. So anyway, just even that, figuring out, is this the right email for this child? Anyway, so we're all learning, especially with the online stuff. That was a struggle. Like who needs what? Yeah, you're laughing, but some of and my kids were older. My God, imagine the younger kids.
I can't.
But anyway, just
Can't
even
do
doing like the Chromebook insurance, just like little stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like that goes on my list because I know it has to get done. Now it might happen by somebody else, but I don't think so. So I'm just gonna do it, and then I know it's done. So, but, there are bigger things with college and sports and all of that, and we all will grow into it. We'll grow into it, what needs to happen. But I naturally think of those things as things that need to be done. Whereas my partner might not and doesn't. I know that.
Exactly.
Unless I say, hey, this has to happen. And I don't know why. It's just not built that way.
Right.
So because I think of it, then I sign it.
I do think this book helps people, especially younger couples, people not like you and I who've kind of been in these longer term things, but people who are really young and even like prior to marriage. I think it is great for people to think about these things and talk about them, because I think you just hit the nail on the head so well. It so depends on our family of origins, like what did it look like in our own home? And so what are we even thinking is normal, not normal? What might we be rebelling against? What might we be emulating? And I think Eve's book and card game are just such a great way to open the conversation so young couples can really talk about these things. I mean, probably as a family law attorney, I'm a little biased. I see so many divorces, and I feel like so much of the time I'm like, oh my gosh, you two could work this out if you could just communicate about all this stuff.
Yes. Yeah, the communication is huge. And I think a lot of times people they push that stuff down, or they get resentful. I have a couple of friends going through divorces right now, and it's really tough because I didn't see them coming. I didn't see it coming, but I think a lot of it's because it was pushed down. And so, you got to find the sort of the time to do that, the opportunity to do that. And the sooner the better, because the longer it is, the harder.
Absolutely. And I thought it was brilliant to actually create a card game, where you can
interesting. Oh my
talk
God.
about these things and
what a
bring
smart
it up.
lady. Is she
Oh,
married? Does she have kids?
she
Do you,
is married with children. Yeah, she's a lovely person and
that's cool.
really has just, I think, brought an amazing resource to the conversation of equality in the home and how do you work it out? Like what works for each family and how do you work to your strengths, because we don't all have the same strengths.
Mhm.
And figuring all that out, I just thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's
Well, now
awesome.
you have to answer. As the member of Maximum Lawyer, I
Mhm.
have to ask you because as you probably know, Jim gets harassed relentlessly for his Birkenstocks and socks.
Oh my God.
Like he's so wonderful though. He's got the best attitude. And being a Pacific Northwest resident, I'm a huge fan of Birkenstocks and socks. I mean, we all wear them. Do you approve this attire as he goes
No,
out the house, or is
no,
he on his own with
this
this?
is ridiculous. I don't understand why he does this, but I love him and I got a lot of other things to deal with, so I'm not in charge of his wardrobe. But yeah, he's comfortable and he's happy and it's his personality.
That's
He's kind of
awesome. I love
easygoing
that.
with that. I do have, if we're going to a certain place or something, I'm saying it's not gonna work. And
Well,
he generally knows.
it is so funny. My husband recently, we were going out to dinner somewhere and he had on shorts. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, you can't really wear shorts as a grown man to a restaurant.
Oh my God.
And
All
he
the
was
time.
like, we were in California, so he was like, it's fine, it's casual, whatever. And we were picking up my Marine son, and it was interesting because he actually brought pants. And so my son, who's like, 21, 22, he says, oh, I would never wear shorts out to eat. And I was like, yes. I'm like,
See? Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, Jim loves his shorts. I'm not gonna mess with his shorts. Oh no. And my boys similarly follow the shorts protocol. Yes.
it's so funny. Well, tell us a little bit about, if you could tell us one thing that you have learned, like a takeaway for you of being a mom, a lawyer, running this law firm with Jim. What is one piece of advice you could give our listeners as you're juggling all of this? And you with so many children, you have such rich experience in this area.
Wow. That's a good question. Let's see. Well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist and a little bit of a control person. And so that's really hard for me. And I've had to really work at letting go of some of that. And I think sending the kids to college has really, like, that's helping me. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know where you are. I still have apps and things to track, which is because I'm like that. And safety, it's about safety. It's not about stalking, it's about safety. And so, but I have had to, my boys are thousands of miles away. And
Right.
I just have to trust that and have faith that they're going to do what they think is best and being able to let go. And it's not perfect. Everything is not, and it's okay because you're going to have
Yep.
to learn. And it's, making mistakes is okay. And that really is hard for me too. I don't
Yeah.
like to deal with mistakes, even though it's what I do in my job. I
Right.
make mistakes all the time. I don't know. I don't like them. And so I work really hard not to make a mistake, but then you don't want to miss something because you're so busy trying not to make a mistake that you missed an opportunity or you missed a chance. And so for me, it's okay to not be perfect. And there's
Right.
no such thing as perfect. And who the heck is perfect? And it's not there. I am hard on myself. And so I
Yeah.
think it's important to remember to be kind to yourself. We try to be kind to other people. But we forget to be kind to ourselves. And so
Totally.
maybe I have lots of little pieces of advice, but that taking a breath, pausing, letting go as best you can. I know it's hard.
It's so hard. It
And
is.
being kind to yourself, giving yourself that time, the courtesy that we give to our clients, the courtesy we give to our kids and to our spouse. I don't think we really do a good job, at least for me. I'm not very good at that. But I'm getting better, and as I get older and as my kids are getting older and being more independent, I'm finding that that's good for me. Like it doesn't have to be guilt ridden. I don't have to feel bad that I wasn't doing
Right.
this, doing that. But to do the best you can with what you have and then to try to let go. But it's so hard. I say it knowing it's so hard.
It is.
And then
Well,
communication.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you really recognizing how hard it is coming from somebody like you who is so you know, you look at your career path and you've been so successful, your family just feels so successful. I mean, they're every time I see a picture of your children, they're smiling. I mean, you all just seem to really do a great job, but how you really understand how hard things are, and they are not perfect. And I mean, I think failure is one of our best teachers. I mean, I
Oh,
have to
yeah.
say,
Oh,
you
yeah, for
know,
sure.
making those mistakes and learning from them, and really normalizing failure for your children too, you know, so that they can become resilient and gritty and learn to make their own mistakes and learn from them.
So hard to do. It's so
It,
hard to watch. It's the hardest thing I think is
it is.
watching your child do something and that
Yep.
you don't agree with. And I've said it to my clients. Yeah, I don't agree with this. You can do this. It's your choice. I want you to be aware of the risks. I will not be supporting this. I will not put my name on this. I won't, but it is your choice. You're a grown up. You can do that. So
Absolutely.
if you still feel that way, then you should go ahead. But I
Yeah,
want the record to show that
right.
I did not authorize it. And that's hard for me to do, but
It
I'd much
is.
rather do that than just play along. And so that's the communication to me is the honesty that I have with my kids. Like, you want to do this? I'm not paying for that. I will
Yep.
pay for this. And actually, before they went to college, a little contract. This is what I'm going to do. This is what Jim and I are going to do. And this is what you're going to do. And as
Yep.
long as that all works out, then you're fine. And if it doesn't, then I don't have to support that. I always love you. I will always be
Totally.
there emotionally, but I don't have to give you the check. I don't have to transfer that
Exactly.
money. Right? I have the right to do that, but that's so hard as a parent too.
It
It's so
is
hard. It's so hard.
so hard. It is really hard, but I think it's critical
Yeah.
because, I mean, I look at college and the investment we parents put into that really as extra. You know what I mean? Like, these children are actually adults, you know, when they go off. I know your second son is younger, he's 17, you know, but they're
Still,
they definitely can do certain things and reach certain things. I mean, I struggled with that, trying to figure out what is the grade point average. Like, am I willing to pay for, you know, this level of grades versus that level of grades? Or is it a based on effort? Or, you know, how do we determine all those things? Because to me, it's not a good investment to pay for school if my child is not working reasonably hard and trying, you
yes, I
know.
totally agree with that. It's a total investment, and I have a right to that information. I have a right to that, with, albeit with, some restrictions on my part. I'm not checking in every day to make sure you turned in your assignment like I did a year
Oh
ago.
gosh, no. Yeah,
Right. But sadly, a year or two ago, I'm still, why isn't this turned in? Like, I'm not doing that anymore. But there are real life consequences for these things.
right.
It's very hard to learn because you don't want to push too hard, then that they lose interest, or they're like, okay,
Yeah,
fine, but you also don't want to them to walk all over you and think money is just
exactly.
right there. They need to understand that. And I think they do. And I think because they've lived with us and because they've seen us, I mean, for me, it was always really important that my kids saw how hard I worked, just like I saw how hard my
Totally.
parents worked, right? Like,
Yes,
I'm not digging ditches every day. It's a different kind of hard, but it's hard. We deal with people's
absolutely.
lives every day, and their children and their families and their work, and what is going to become of them. Their future is in our hands. So that's
Well,
a huge responsibility.
and you're showing up. I mean, you're actually working every day. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
know, like, you take your work seriously. Well, it was
Yes.
interesting because that is one of the reasons my son, who's in the Marines, cited, was when he told me after his freshman semester of college, I'm dropping out of school, I'm joining the Marines. I wanted to serve the country. That's what I'm going to do. And I was like, why are you doing that? You know, like, I was kind of surprised. And he said, I'm just not into this. And he goes, it's truly a bad investment for you. I mean, he goes, I am not into it. I'm not doing my best. He goes, yeah, I'm making B's. I'm doing all right, but I'm just not into it. And he goes, I don't think you should be spending this money. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
fair enough. But I was like, you don't have to join the Marines.
Right.
Like, you
There's some
could
other things in between.
get just a day job if you
Yeah.
want. But he was like, no, he's like, I want to serve the country. Like, I've wanted to do that. And this is my opportunity. And I'm going. And I was like, okay, more power to you. But,
Right. Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
The
but I
big
thought
decisions.
that was interesting that in his mind, he even saw the investment piece, because I do think it is that. And I don't
Yeah.
think, our children are entitled to go to school for 4 years and not do well or try to do well. You know what I mean? Put in the effort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. well, they saw the results of our effort and what we,
Right.
you know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of what they're reaping too, is what we set as expectations at home, what their
Right.
expectations for themselves. They want to be successful, right? They want to be
Absolutely.
successful. They want to, please us, even though they act like they don't. There are all these things that we just need to keep that open and
Right.
let them grow in their own way. But it's very hard not to want to control that too. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Yeah.
my son, the one who just left, he was debating, he couldn't decide like where to go to college. And it was really, really kind of a tough parenting moment where it's like, we got to pay a deposit like in a few
Yeah.
days. So you need to make a decision. And he's like, well, why
Yep.
don't you just tell me where you want me to go? I'm like, that's not for me to say. And I don't want to be
Right.
responsible for that. Like, you need to make the decision. But he's such
Totally.
an intellectual guy, and he was debating from lots of different angles, and we had all these different things. And so we
Right.
just processed it, like I just talked it through with him and we processed it, but I didn't want to make the decision. I think at the end he made
Absolutely.
a good decision for himself,
Oh, yeah.
and
It's
I
a
hope it
great
works out. It's
school.
only been a week. It's been a
Right.
week. But still, like, that had to be on him, right? But how interesting,
Completely.
he was trying to get me to say something like, oh no, I'm not falling for that. Oh no, 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 no. And I have a strong personality. Like, I would like to, it's easier for me just to say, okay, let's just do this.
Totally.
Come on. But
Yeah.
and he's a different, he processes things differently. He thinks differently, and he's different than my older son, who was dead set on something else. He wasn't. He just had lots of other things in there.
Exactly.
So
It
you just
is.
gotta give them the room to do that.
Well, and it's fascinating, I think, and I didn't realize just how different children could be. I mean, I had some kids who applied to 10, 12 colleges and they were looking at different, whereas my last one, literally, we visited the school he's at a month before the pandemic started. Well, really like 10 days before the pandemic started.
Mhm.
And he loved it, came home and was like, that is the school I'm going to. I'm applying as soon as the application opens. And if I get in, that's that. Then the pandemic hit, whatever, everything kind of shut down. And he stuck with that. And he applied like August 1st before he started his senior year, got in. And his entire senior year, he knew where he was going. He would
Wow.
not apply to another school. I could not
I
get
can't believe it.
to apply to a different school. And he's like, why would I do that? He's like, this is where I want to go. I do not need 10 colleges to tell me I got in or I didn't get in.
Wow,
He's like,
yeah.
don't need it, don't want it. This is where I want to go. And I'm
What's he
not worrying
studying?
about engineering, mechanical engineering at Kettering in Michigan. And
Wow.
so he was just so dead set. And I was like, you might regret this decision having not applied to the other schools that you've looked at, like Purdue, Colorado School of Mines, other engineering schools. But he was like, if I regret it, I'll maybe file an application later and transfer. He's just like, he's so,
set. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's my first son. He just wanted to go to California. You said that's set in California. That's set in California. And that's okay. Are you sure? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Okay. I mean, what are you going to do?
What do you do? Exactly.
You just hope it all works out, and you're there whatever happens. And that's the thing. They know that we're there for them, and we support them. But they also know that, if I don't like something, I'm going to tell them I don't like something. So.
I love that. I have so loved our talk today, Amany. I'm so grateful for the time you shared with us. And I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was fun. You made me think about some things I forgot happened.
I feel the same way.
Great. Well, we should continue this another time.
Absolutely. Well, and you have a great week. And I look forward to hearing how both your sons are doing this year in school.
Yes, and you too. Good luck on your baby, empty nester. Oh my, enjoy. I might need some tips here pretty soon.
Yeah, you have a great week and give Jim my best.
Will do. Thanks so much. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah,
Take care.
bye-bye.